Chop, the original Guillotine League podcast. Everything you need to know to avoid the chopping block. Chop is brought to you by GuillotineLeagues.com. Now, your host, Paul Charchian.
Welcome to Chop, the Guillotine League Podcast. I'm Paul Charchian. It is Thursday. That means it's time to flex around and find out. And I've got help by my side. First, a man whose fantasy football modeling spreadsheets have more if-thens than Jared Fogel's parole hearing. It's Matthew Freedman.
That's really good. And it is almost as if you knew that this morning I was in the spreadsheet adding in some more stuff, maybe a couple of if-then formulas or formulae, maybe if we're being super proper in Latin it on this show. But yeah, awesome to be back on the show. And it's week 9, halfway through the season. Yes. It's all I would say it's all downhill in the best way from here.
If you're live at this point, you've already got the makings of a superstar roster, and it gets to be really fun the rest of the way. Yeah. Also joining us, a man whose purse strings are so tight, his fab has seen less sunlight than Jared Fogel. It's Brian Johnson.
Yes. Hello, Charge. It is Brian Johnson, but I am, for those who can see on YouTube, in costume right now. So I will get in character at some point whenever you're ready.
Yes.
It's great to see Jared Fogel in the news cycle again. I know it's an old
that is a new, that is one of the more peculiar turns that we don't ever talk about. Jared Fogel from spokesman doing spots with Michael Strahan to where he is now in jail. Due out, by the way, 2029. Jared Fogel.
Yeah, that's not soon enough, or you know what I mean. He should be forever. Sadly, people probably dressed like him for Halloween at some point.
They probably did,
and those pictures are out there, and they probably very much regret it. Put it that way.
Yes. Now, Brian, you say you're dressed up for Halloween.
I am.
Friday. So, you're dressed for Halloween now. What are you wearing?
Yeah, I'm not a Jets fan, so let me get in character for those who can see. All right. I am Sam Darnold in the year 2020. I have some things to say. As you can see, many gray hairs. I'm only 22 years old. This is my second year with Adam Gase as my head coach. I can't believe they even let this guy drive a car. It's pretty horrible here. No one on this career path would even be in the league, so I am proud of myself for that. My number one receiving option for the last 2 years has been Jamison Crowder. And I must admit, I'm not feeling good about the Brashad Perriman signing. And I don't think this Denzel Mims draft pick is going to work out. I'm feeling, though, I'll be in Carolina soon. And at least they have Christian McCaffrey, who they will not trade. Just as I'm getting acclimated to the offense under Matt Rule, who I think he probably shouldn't have a driver's license either. But that's all I have to say for now. But I know greener pastures are ahead for me, especially in 2025 when I win the Most Valuable Player award. And
Sam Darnold circa 2020. Well done. That's a rock solid Halloween costume. And reminder, this podcast available in video form on the Fantasy Life YouTube channel, where you can see Brian Johnson in costume as Sam Darnold right now. Freedman, when was the last time you dressed up for Halloween, and who or what did you dress up as? Do you recall?
Yeah, it had to be college. And I really didn't do the Halloween thing all that much in college, but I do have this faint recollection of dressing up in full Austin Powers garb.
Oh, nice.
And going to a party. So that might've been, I don't know, 2004, 2005.
All right. So it's been 20 years.
It was a long time ago, fellas.
Yeah, I bet. Austin Powers movies, totally underappreciated. I believe they were great in their day. They hold up well. Very good movies. Now, to be clear, you didn't go trick-or-treating in college. You just went to a Halloween party, costume party in college.
Yes, I went to a costume party accompanied by 2 fembots who were wearing like the fembot like outfit. Right. So like it all hung together. It worked well, but it was definitely not trick-or-treating.
You needed someone with a dressed like a shark with a laser on their head. That would have really completed the ensemble.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it really
right. Now if you could have hired Mini-Me for that, that would have been outstanding.
Look, fellas,
Burn
I
Destroyer.
obviously needed you guys 21 years ago as my costume consiglieres. Maybe next iteration of this life, we'll all meet much earlier, and you guys can give me these ideas in real time. Now,
That's right. Yeah.
man, this would have been so good, but it was like 21 years ago.
Best I can do is
When you get-
2020 Sam Darnold. I can give you advice from 2020 Sam Darnold. That's as far back in the past as I figured out how to travel.
When you get to go to a college party with two fembots, you've got one on either arm. That's trick-or-treating at a whole other dimension right there. Well,
it was not bad. Yeah, thank you.
The last time I dressed up for Halloween, I had decided, this is like 20 years ago as well, I had decided the whole nature of trick-or-treat is very unfair to the homeowners, right? So there's this implied threat. If you do not buy me off with a bunch of candy, then I'm going to pull some stunt on you, right? And so there's going to be like this implied threat, like, I don't know, we're going to throw a rock at your house or whatever. So I decided I'm going to get back at these kids. I'm going to flip the tables on these kids, and I'm going to be dressed up in the scariest thing I could think of, which was the Scream costume. Of course, this is the black robes, the stretched out face. I spent non-trivial money on this Scream costume. And I put the mask on, I put the robes on, I get a kitchen knife out of my from the butcher block.
Like so, like a legit blade. Like you got like a
real blade.
Murder.
And
piece?
I look at myself. I go into the bathroom and I look at myself in the mirror. I scared myself. I'm like, geez, this thing is in real life. The Scream guy is legitimately scary. But I'm committed to the bit at that point. And I'm like, I'm turning the tables on these kids. Doorbell rings. I've got the Scream outfit. I pull open the door and it's a 4-year-old girl in a princess costume. And she immediately starts bawling. She's crying her eyes out. And here comes Mom charging up from the driveway. What are you doing? You've ruined Halloween for our family.
Bro.
And I took the costume off right then.
Yeah, that might be that's like a felony, I think, like wielding a weapon, especially at a. Yeah, we might want to scrub this from the records.
Didn't really think that one through entirely right there.
I mean, look,
I think my heart was in the right place. I mean, there should be something for these kids.
It sounds like it was a great evening. Just from that little bit that you said right there. It sounds like it all went according to plan.
The other stupid thing that I did on Halloween, and I pulled this off for a while. If there were older kids who would come to the door, so you'd have the bucket of candy, I snuck a few rocks from like just, out of the, like the yard landscape into the bucket. And to sort of punish these older kids, when I would give them the piece of candy, I would palm the rock and I would put both in the bag. They could see the candy, but also the rock would hit and they thought they had hit the jackpot. Like, oh, something really heavy just fell in. And they'd be like, oh, mister, thanks. That's really great. But secretly, I've got this line of demarcation at around 13-ish years old where I'm like, I think you're too old for this. So I was pulling this stunt on these older kids. And then after I'd done this successfully for years, and I've been bragging about it on the radio and advising people they should do it. But then one of the years, I pulled the stunt with the rock and then closed the door. 30 seconds later, I hear a thump on my house. One of the kids had figured it out. He had thrown the rock back at my house. At that point, all right, I'm out. Maybe there's just no winning against these kids.
Yeah, that's the epitome of asking for it right there.
Not really. I did for a long time. Eventually got there.
You're lucky you can get your mailbox blown up or something like that too. I've known of some heinous Halloween crimes committed by children.
This is something that would be in a Curb Your Enthusiasm episode, very much like, I mean, there even was like a trick or treat episode in one of the early seasons where Larry David is talking about the implied threat. But Charge, this kind of out of the box thinking is exactly what I would expect out of the guy who invented the guillotine leagues. You know what I mean? Like I would expect actually nothing less.
I do love to break the system whenever I can. That is part of what I do here. We're going to get into flex around and find out in just a second, and we'll talk about 9 players that we think you need to be careful with. But first, I want to talk to you guys about this. In NFL circles, there's a name for mid-tier players. There's a called JAGs, JAG. Have you guys familiar with this? JAGs?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Just
What's it
another
stand
guy.
for?
Just a guy.
Just a guy.
I thought it was another. I always went by another, but either or.
I think
right?
they both work. I think I've always heard it as just a guy.
Used to be a CBS show. I only know that because you would see it. The ads run mercilessly watching
On
football.
Sundays.
Yeah.
Yes.
Watch
Yeah.
Jag after the show. No thanks. Anyway.
Yeah. No idea who starred in Jag and how it all turned out for them. For where we are in a guillotine season, I think JAGs, and by the way, here's our JAG for this. JAGs stands for just antagonizing guillotiners. JAGs, we have run the course on JAGs. Here we are, we're heading into week 9.
Hold on, that Jag's got 5 limbs.
Okay.
He's got
I was
2
thinking
thumbs up. And,
I thought the same
I was
thing.
wondering if you guys were going to notice.
yeah, definitely.
We've got a 5-limbed jaguar on screen. Yes. And by the way, I was trying to get Grok to do 1 thumb up and 1 thumb down. Grok is not into that. First of all, Jaguars shouldn't have thumbs, and Grok seemed to be struggling with that. Could not get it to do 1 thumb up and 1 thumb down, but we'll talk about that in just a second. Jags are these just a guy or just another guy who are 10-point producers on your roster. At the beginning of the season, in draft time, I was telling you to go find 10-point producers every week. Those guys were going to help you stay alive for 2 months of the season. Now we're 2 months into the season, and it's time to demand more from your players. If you've got Jags, 10-point producers on your roster, it's not good enough. You know, it used to be 10 points per guy, 8 starters, that's 80 points. 80 points was going to keep you safe. 80 points is not a safe number anymore in your Guillotine League team. So I think it's time to focus instead of these Jag guys. I think you're better off with handcuffs. I think you're better off with handcuffed players, especially running backs, but you can even handcuff other players too at other positions, who can give you more upside than the 10-point guys. I want to run you guys through some 10-pointers. These are Jags. I've got 10 Jags for you. And you just tell me I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. Give me 10, 15 seconds. And each one of these guys, tell me if you think they're roster worthy in Guillotine now for where we are now, or at this point, are you better off having high-end backups, handcuffs, or somebody else? All right, here we go. You ready?
Charles,
yes.
As a point of order, can I ask you a quick question on
please.
this? So where we are in the Guillotine League cycle, we have how many teams remaining? 10 teams
10.
remaining.
Max 10. Yes.
Yeah. Max of 10. And let's say each of those teams has maybe 14 to 16 roster spots.
14. Yeah, 14.
Right.
Yep.
So we're talking now at this point, 140 guys should be rostered. And so just to kind of set that up and for people listening, kind of
Love
thinking about the pool, the shrinking size of the pool at this point. So that kind of dictates what it is that we're talking about and the caliber of player we're thinking should be rostered.
That is a brilliant way to look at it. So I just looked up my 140th ranked player on my Guillotine League rankings for this week. It's Malik Washington, Miami wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
So that gives you a sense of where the bar could be. Now, that's not to say that you should roster everybody that's better than Malik Washington, who, by the way, I think is somebody you could trade out. I mean, I think he's got some upside over some of the players you're going to hear. But the guys that I'm going to give you, these 10 players, I think you're going to find they're all right in that range, coincidentally, including my 141. It's going to be a guy we're going to talk about right now, in just a second. So first, This guy, does he belong on rosters? Tony Pollard. Again, I only want like 10, 15 seconds. First blush. Does Tony Pollard belong on Guillotine rosters at this point? Freedman, you go first.
I say yes, but just barely, for just maybe one more week, because he's a starter, but he's not a guy who's going to help you in any capacity beyond the next couple of weeks.
Okay. Brian, Tony Pollard. Thumbs up, Jaguar paw up, or Jaguar paw down?
I'm like right in the middle. I mostly agree. Yeah, I agree with Freedman. If you're not starting him this week, though, you can drop him because the Titans are on bye in week 10. And then beyond that, I don't really care about Tony Pollard. But if he is flex worthy for some, for sure, this week. So I would hold for now. But I think, obviously, if he totally wets the bed again, clearly drop him going into his bye week.
Hey, one more thing on these Jags that we're talking about, just the guys. When you drop him, he becomes somebody else's problem. You know, you're taking a guy like Tony Pollard, you're tempted to start, but getting little out of. And you're putting that somebody's going to pick that guy up, for each one of these. So also bear in mind, as I ask you about each of these players, bear in mind, do you like the idea of adding some drama and perhaps bad decision-making for some other person somebody's going to pick these guys up in almost every one of these cases. All right, next guy up, Alvin Kamara. Brian, I'll let you start first on this one. Alvin Kamara, are we Jag paw up or are we Jag paw down on Kamara for rostering?
Still got to be paw up. Bye week still looming for the Saints, week 11, but 2 more weeks. Obviously, they're working Devin Neal in a little more. This isn't a handcuff scenario where you're going to hold Kamara and handcuff Neal to him, really, in my mind. But I'm still holding Kamara for now. One more week.
All right. Freeman, Alvin Kamara. Thumbs up or thumbs down? We dropping him or holding him?
Yeah, I'll have more to say about Kamara in a little bit. That's what we call a tease.
Okay.
But I will say, I think just in case Shuck actually turns out to be a competent NFL quarterback, I think we should be hanging on to Alvin Kamara.
All right. Next up, Jordan Mason, Vikings running back. It's all running backs so far. It won't all be running backs. Jordan Mason. Is he somebody that we're going to continue to roster? For this one, we start with Freedman.
Yeah, I think so, because if JJ McCarthy actually turns out, again, it's similar to Shuck. If he turns out to be a competent NFL quarterback, Mason is ostensibly right now the lead back on a team that is someone who could have value if everything works out as we would have expected or wanted with JJ McCarthy.
Yeah. So far, Brian, what is your thoughts on Jordan Mason? Continue to roster him?
Yeah, I full lockstep. And he, even if it's a 50-50 split, Mason will be the goal line back, but it's all a matter of McCarthy getting them into the green zone, whatever you want to call it, near the end zone. But it's worth holding to see if that happens, especially for Thor. We're praying McCarthy comes through for Thor.
Yeah, if only for Thor's sake. Jordan Mason in 3 games with Aaron Jones has been fantasy disaster, like guillotine level stuff here. So I don't share quite your optimism. How about the other Viking running back, Aaron Jones? This is tricky, right? You get some PPR utilization out of him. Brian, you can go first on this one. Aaron Jones, you keeping him or not? Guillotine.
Yeah, only for the PPR aspect. He will become expendable pretty soon, but Vikings bye week in the rear view. So he led the team in opportunities last week, carries and targets. So he's still a hold for now. Assuming, we're just hoping for JJ, right? He could get the offense
Freedman?
going.
Oh, man. I would
Tough
be
call.
fine dropping him. I would be fine dropping him. It all depends on who you're picking up, but I don't look at Aaron Jones at this point, given the offense and given the presence of Jordan Mason. I don't look at him as someone I need to keep.
Here's why I think you're both wrong on these Viking running backs. By the time you feel good about JJ McCarthy, perhaps 3 weeks from now, the window for split pair, the window in Guillotine for split dual usage running backs on one team, that's out. By week 12, week 13, we're not talking about starting those kinds of guys in Guillotine anymore. All right, let me give you a couple of wide receivers. Juwan Jennings, San Francisco wide receiver Juwan Jennings, playing through his 5 broken ribs, ankle sprains, the productivity hasn't been good. We've got a presumably looming returning of Ricky Pearsall before too long as well. And George Kittle is back. So Juwan Jennings, is he on rosters for Guillotine? We'll begin with Freedman.
Yeah. I mean, in the 2 weeks that he has been back from his injuries, he's still been the number one wide receiver with the 49ers. I believe a 27 or 28% route rate, which is really good stuff. I said route rate, I meant target rate, which is still really good stuff. So I want exposure to that offense, and a number one wide receiver in an offense I like. That's a guy I'm going to hang on to.
All right, Brian, Juwan Jennings gallantly playing through all these injuries.
Yeah, not much to add again. Perhaps a looming return for Brandon Ayuk, though. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's probably not in the next week or two. So, yeah, I'm in agreement with everything Freedman said.
All right, so we're holding on Juwan Jennings for now. All right, next up, this convoluted Green Bay receiving group that just gets worse now. Christian Watson comes back. We've got the return of Jaden Reed looming as well. What about Romeo Doubs, who's been he's been guillotine serviceable for most of this year, but this thing is getting more and more diluted every week. What do you think on Romeo Doubs? You holding?
Well, I think it's my go, right?
Yep.
Well, what needs to be said about the Packers wide receivers is the best wide receiver on the team is Tucker Kraft, who plays tight end. By the way, I think already cemented as a first-round Guillotine League pick next year if this sustains. Why would it not? He did it last year. But anyway, no, Doubs will he'll kill you. He might save you 1 week, but he's a spike week player, and right now you can't trust him. So I'm fine dropping him, especially with the return of Watson.
Freedman, Romeo Doubs.
Yeah, I think skip me. I will have more to say about him later.
Say on him later. Got it. Cooper Kupp as another potential drop candidate. He's been good enough to keep you alive in a lot of games, giving you 6, 8, maybe 10 PPR points. Does that continue, Freedman?
Look, if I'm thinking that Cooper Kupp is going to make a difference to my roster, my team is so bad that I'm probably going to get chopped in the next week. I would be very fine dropping him in search of anything else.
Okay. Brian?
Although future MVP is throwing to him. Well, you know what? I am going to disagree. I'm holding him this week. I think he's serviceable at Washington, who better put a ton of attention on Jackson Smith and Jigba. So I'll roll the dice on him this week. But he's streamable this week. So I guess I say hold, but not for much longer.
Quick side conversation. Next year, Kupp's off the team and Torrey Horton is starting, right?
Yeah.
That might be the end of the month. Well, end of next month. November.
All right. I rostered him holding Torrey Horton for next year in my Dynasty Empire team.
Oh yeah. By the way, I do not appreciate you tying my Chimere DK bid. For $8.
I did. Yes. In our Dynasty League. I didn't know we tied.
You beat me on a tiebreaker.
All right.
You're somehow worse than my Stars and Scrubs team that had Lamar Jackson, CeeDee Lamb, Puka Nacua, and Scrubs. McBride's my own. I know we're derailing the convo. Sorry.
I'm only going 2 more players on you. That's it. Next up, DJ Moore, the Chicago Bears wide receiver. Middling production. He's moved way, way down the pecking order behind Roma Dunze. And even last week, Olamide Zaccheaus getting more action. What do you think about DJ Moore? It would have been unthinkable at the start of the season, but are we at a stage now where you're better off not rostering him?
I don't mind dropping him, but I would want to hold him for at least 1 more week because there's maybe the potential that they trade him. Who knows where he might end up. Maybe it's a better situation. He's so talented. I don't want to drop him, but I can see the case for dropping him.
Cincinnati this week. So Brian, maybe if you're going to play him this week, do it. But if you're not going to play DJ Moore this week, he might be somebody that you view as expendable. I'm just going to do 1 more player.
Well, can I add something to that?
Yeah, please.
Play him or you don't. If you play him and he bombs, obviously drop him. But if you don't play him, it might be worth a hold. Has a great game, then you drop him. Sabotage drop him, right, Charge? And then have someone burn some fab on him next week. Because obviously, I mean, if you're gonna drop DJ Moore, I think that's going to be a lateral move for the most part at this point in the week after the Wednesday bidding period.
Our final jag is Vikings tight end TJ Hawkinson. Potential jag. At this stage, the production has been bad. And even at the tight end position, it's pretty tough to go forward with TJ Hawkinson on a weekly basis. Brian, I'll let you go first on this one. Are we pause up or pause down on this jag?
How do we not have one jag in the Jags, by the way? That's kind of
That's
disappointing.
a very good
But Hawkinson, yeah. Going into a revenge game. You know, I love revenge games. Everyone loves a revenge game at Detroit this week, but I'll lump him with the other Vikings. Let's just see how McCarthy does. Worth a hold. Tight end still pretty thin. I'll hold him one more week.
Look, I have disrespect is the wrong word, but I've been down on TJ Hawkinson all year, even before the season started.
You were right. I remember that. Yep.
Yeah. And at this point, I thought about including him in the show. And then I looked at my rankings and I thought, no, he's too far down for us to talk about him at this point as a flex and find out. So yeah, I think he should not be on rosters right now.
Agreed. Off. Done. And I'm not starting him this week, even with the revenge game, Brian. I'm sorry. I know you love your revenge games. But I'll give you a chance, Brian, to explain how flex around and find out works.
Yeah, we're about to get into 9 guys that you would normally feel safe starting in a Guillotine League, even at this point in the season. But we'll have reasons to tell you you might want to hit the waiver wire for Thursday or Sunday bidding. There might be better options out there because these guys could be, insert the Star Wars GIF. It's a trap. Whatever that guy.
It's a trap. Yes. What is that guy's name?
Akbar?
Akbar. That's it. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Admiral Akbar. Well done. Well done. You saw Porkins just died.
No.
I did not. Yeah, Porkins dead. Flex around and find out is brought to you by Xfinity. Imagine all your football all in one place. Easy. Xfinity. Imagine that. Freedman, your first flex around and find out player, as alluded to earlier. Saints running back Alvin Kamara taking on the Rams. Tell us about it.
All right. So the Saints this week are 14 and a half point road underdogs. They're playing a team that is coming off of the bye, and they are playing in the late 4 p.m. Eastern window, which is like outside of their normal window. So all of that is just like a terrible setup, right? And then there's the matchup. The Rams are number 1 in fantasy boost allowed to running backs in our DVP tool. Actually, the fantasy boost is negative, right? Negative 7.6 fantasy points allowed to tight ends, to running backs based on what running backs normally score. Second fewest fantasy points overall to backfields. So the Rams defense is good. So a terrible matchup and a terrible general set of circumstances. And then there are all of the Kamara specific factors. The usage is just not there. If you look at the utilization report we have at Fantasy Life, you can see that for the season, he has a 56% rush share and an 11% target share. You compare those to last year's numbers, a 22% target share and then a 63% rush share. So the big thing is that his target opportunity has literally been cut in half this year. And the receiving game is where Kamara derives most of his value. So you just kind of look, the Saints have the lowest implied team total on the week. So you have a low probability of Kamara scoring a touchdown. As a road dog, he's not likely to get lots of carries. And then with a decreased role in the passing game, he's probably not going to see many targets either. So you just look at this and you think, where is there any sort of potential upside for Kamara? There's really none, unless Tyler Shuck just ends up being much, much better than anyone thinks he will be. But even with 4 teams on bye, I just think Kamara is way too dangerous to start in this format at this time of the year.
Agreed. And as I alluded to earlier, potentially droppable outright. Alvin Kamara. We're entering that part of the guillotine season where guys like him just don't give you enough. And this is a brutal matchup. Brian, your first flex around and find out player, it's both of the Carolina running backs, Chuba Hubbard and Rico Dowdle. See, I like that they have an announced starter with Rico Dowdle here. So talk to me about the Chuba Hubbard. The Chuba Hubbard part to me seems obvious as the backup, but Rico Dowdle, talk to me.
Yeah, I'm still gonna sit Rico here because I do think Chuba is going to get some carries. I hope I am wrong there. I mean, I love Chuba Hubbard. He was a league winner last year before going down late in the season with injury, but averaging just 3.6 yards per carry this year. But we're talking about Dowdle, who's averaging 5.7. Here are the running backs with more rushing yards than Rico Dowdle so far. Granted, Carolina has not had their bye yet, but still, Jonathan Taylor, James Cook, J.K. Dobbins, Javonte Williams. That is the end of the list. Wow. Dowdle's been on fire. Yep. I still think they're going to inexplicably give Chuba a little too many touches. But even if Dowdle handles the majority, the matchup is as bad as it gets against Green Bay. Opposing backs are averaging just 25 opportunities per game. That's rush attempts plus targets. Those very low numbers for a measly 94 combo yards, rushing and receiving yards per game. And the Panthers lost 3 offensive linemen last week. One got put on IR, 2 questionable. I hated to do it, but I've personally sat Rico in a couple leagues. I think I'm playing Kyle Monangai over him in one.
Ooh, that's probably not good. Freedman, I'm looking at my rankings. I've got Dowdle 19. You've got him 20. So you and I in relative lockstep here. With Guillotine, 10 teams left. That's, 20 RB20 is somebody we probably have to start even against a very good Packer run defense.
Yeah, we should have said that about RB1 last week and Bijan Robinson as well. But
yeah, we should have known.
None of us.
We should have known.
It was
so obvious in retrospect that Bijan was going to not reach 25 yards rushing or receiving. All right, my first flex around and find out player. Kansas City tight end Travis Kelce going up against Buffalo. Kelce, of course, went berserk on Monday night with his best game in almost a year and his second highest scoring game in 2 seasons. And I guess that's what I'm saying here is that game on Monday night was an outlier. That is not the version of Travis Kelce that we've gotten for most of this year and even most of last year. For the 7 games before Monday night, Travis Kelce was tight end 14. There's only 10 teams left in your Guillotine League, at most 10. That makes Kelce a tight end 14, not an auto start. That is just a muscle memory start on Travis Kelce because you always do it. The Bills' tight end defense has been phenomenal. Only one tight end has scored against Buffalo all year, and that was Jeremy Ruckert in the opener. No tight end has topped 46 yards against Buffalo all year long. The average output for a starting tight end against the Bills. So this is starting tight ends against the Bills, averaging 2 catches for 17 yards. And when the Bills faced Kelce last year, he had 2 catches for 8 yards. That's it. And I just learned that Jeremy Ruckert went to high school, same place as Matt LaMarca, our producer. That's pretty cool. Jeremy Ruckert. There was a point at which we weren't sure Mason Taylor was going to play last week. Jeremy Ruckert's going to be the starter for the Jets. Anybody want to chime in on my concerns with Travis Kelce? Freedman, what do you think?
Yes, I in prepping for the show didn't look closely enough in the messages that we were sending to each other, and so I didn't notice that you had chosen Travis Kelce. So I put, I'm going to talk about Travis Kelce. And then you jumped in and were like, no. I've already claimed it.
Dibs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good for you for having the quick draw on putting the names in there in the outline, but 100% agree. I'll just add that even as great as the Chiefs offense is playing right now, they spread the ball around. They don't really need to rely on Travis Kelce in order for them to put up points, which makes any player, but especially Kelce, because of all the other issues with him, just kind of regressing with natural age, all of that, it just makes him a little more dangerous relative to some of the other guys at the position and other players in that offense. So I'm in agreement with you, Charch. Travis Kelce, I think a little too dangerous to start this week.
Yep. We're at a stage where 10 teams left. He is not an auto start any longer for Travis Kelce. I bet you both know about this. You can get 1 year of Tier 2 Fantasy Life premium content for free with the Comet browser. FantasyLife.com/Comet gets you everything on Fantasy Life. All the tools, the utilization report that we always mention, Fantasy Hub, and most importantly to you, people listening to the Chop Podcast, Guillotine Rankings. This is a $100 value for free. FantasyLife.com/Comet. And it is a limited time offer. And I'm allowed to tell you, this thing is done when week 9 ends. Monday night, it is over. So go now and get 1 year of free Tier 2 Fantasy Life premium content, FantasyLife.com/Comet. All right, let's go to Freedman, your second flex around and find out player. It's Green Bay wide receiver Romeo Doubs taking on Carolina.
Yep. So we talked about him earlier, and the analysis is pretty simple. We've touched on parts of it. Christian Watson returned last week. He looked like the new number one wide receiver in this offense. And then really Tucker Kraft, he's the actual number one pass catcher in the offense anyway. And then there's the fact that quarterback Jordan Love doesn't force the ball to any one guy. He spreads it around, and then that makes it harder for all of the guys to get the minimum level of production they need to make them safe in guillotine leagues. And then there's the Panthers. They're okay against the pass, but they're not elite, not exploitable. That's the important thing. They're not a defense in the pass that you just absolutely want to stack wide receivers against. And then there's the big factor. The Packers are 13.5 home favorites. I mean, over under 20.5 in terms of like the number of pass attempts that we end up seeing from Jordan Love. I mean, it's probably over, but like you could really see a game where it's just Jordan Love handing the ball off to like a multitude of players. And then the wide receivers, after Tucker Kraft gets his production, the wide receivers having almost nothing left for them. So Romeo Doubs, I think he's a better in reality than in fantasy player in general. And then especially given all of the other circumstances, I think he's just way too unsafe to start this week.
You mentioned the extra handoffs that are going to go around for Green Bay. Emmanuel Wilson is a good player. Anything happens to Josh Jacobs, Emmanuel Wilson is going to be RB10 going forward. He, to me, is exactly the guy that you roster instead of all of these Jag guys that we talked about earlier. Emmanuel Wilson can give you a decided advantage if and we don't root for injury over here. If anything were to happen to Josh Jacobs, you're sitting on an amazing player who's going to power you to a potential win in your guillotine league in a way that you're not going to get out of Alvin Kamara.
Yeah. Charch, I love that. I want to say, I think a segment for a show next week would be if we could talk about like those running backs, those guys that like, okay, he's probably not going to have value because the odds of any given starting running back getting injured aren't all that high. But if that guy in front of him happens to get injured, then this guy is a potential guillotine league winner. I think it would be awesome if we could talk about some of those guys at some point.
Done. That is next Thursday. That will be our intro topic.
Perfect.
Would be league winning backups that you can put on your roster. I love it. I love it. Brian, your second flex around and find out player is Cincinnati wide receiver T. Higgins. We're on the other side of this one. I like T. Higgins this week, assuming Joe Flacco can go. If it's Jake Browning, that's a whole different story. Talk to me about T. Higgins against this beat up Bears secondary.
Well, I don't know if you want Flacco to go if you're pulling for T. Higgins, because Flacco sent 18 targets to Jamar Chase, 2 to T. Higgins. Granted, one was a touchdown. He had less targets than Noah Fant, Chase Brown, and Andre Iosivas. So I don't like T. Higgins this week. If it's Flacco or Jake Browning, Higgins averaging 3 catches, 45 yards a game this year, basically without Joe Burrow, of course. Against the Bears, only 2 wide receivers have topped 5 catches all season. That's Amon-Ra St. Brown and Zay Flowers, 2 clear number 1 receiving options for their team. T. Higgins clearly not the number 1 receiving option for the Bengals. And as a whole, opposing wide receivers averaging less than 10 targets per game against Chicago. So we got 2 against a depleted Jets secondary that went for 70-something, 60-something points. I don't trust T. Higgins this week. I'm out. Hopefully I convince you a little bit.
Not really. Here's, if especially if Tyreek Stevenson can't go and the Bears are short, their number 1, number 2, and number 3 cornerbacks.
Like the Jets.
I want every part of that.
Okay.
I want every part of that. And you got to figure, it's not going to be, it's 42 targets the last 2 games for Jamar Chase. That's not going to hold up. By the way, here's your trivia question for both you two and listeners and viewers. The 42 targets in consecutive games is the most all time history of the NFL. Either of you know who was the previous high target guy in consecutive games with 40 spanning 2 games?
Antonio Brown?
That is not correct. That is a good guess.
You know what? I'm angry at Matt LaMarca for putting his answer in the chat because it was the answer I was going to go with. Because I remember one game with Brandon Marshall just getting peppered with a ton of. I'm going with Brandon Marshall.
It is Brandon Marshall. And I'm trying to remember if it was
Nice.
Bears era Brandon Marshall. Was it Dolphins era Brandon Marshall?
Broncos, he had some pretty amazing seasons, I remember.
He was
I think
really
it was
good.
the Bears.
I'm going to see if I can find it here. This was 2000, and he had a 28 target game in 2009 when he was playing for Denver, and that had to be part of it right there.
I think I remember they had those awful throwbacks they wore that one year, and I remember Marshall going all like. I bet if we go back, like he had the striped socks, like vertical.
Oh,
They
yeah.
were the worst. But I remember him having a day wearing those uglies.
In Brandon Marshall's 28 target game, he had 21 catches for 200 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Unreal.
Too wild. That got him paid in Chicago, that's for sure.
It sure did. While we're talking about Broncos wide receivers, let's go to my second flex around and find out player. It's Denver wide receiver Courtland Sutton going up against Houston. He has fallen behind Troy Franklin in targets over the past 3 weeks, which is not cool to me because I think Sutton's a good player. And Sutton has been a solid touchdown scorer in years past, but he's not getting anywhere near the same end zone targeting that he had gotten prior in his career. In the last month of games, Troy Franklin is outpacing him in end zone targets, including having 3 last week. And then the matchup with Houston, probably the toughest of his year. Houston has only allowed 3 wide receiver scores, and only Jackson Smith and Jigba and Puka Nacua, who are arguably the 2 best receivers in the league right now, have topped the meager milestones of 56 yards against the Titans. And then I look to see if big-bodied, body control, physical receivers have done well against Houston, and that turns out not really. Juwan Jennings, 45 scoreless yards last week. Earlier in the year, Mike Evans, 56 scoreless yards against Houston. So you can't just outmuscle the Ravens secondary for production. Over the last 5 weeks, the Texans rank number 1 in fantasy points allowed to wide receivers. Freedman, looking at the screen here, I can see that you've got him at wide receiver 24, Courtland Sutton. What are your thoughts on Sutton this week, suitability for Guillotine?
I think I agree with the analysis. And I'll say, I started writing in the fantasy industry, 12, 13 years ago at a site called RotoViz. And it was founded by a guy whose, social handle was the fantasy douche. Absolutely great handle.
I remember
the
him.
The reason I bring it up is because he had this one idea on takes to where it was like, look, if you have a bad take, just stay with it because eventually at some point you will be right. And then when you are right, you can just say that you were early and you were ahead of the curve. And that's how I feel about Courtland Sutton. I feel like I've been talking about the eventual demise of Courtland Sutton for like 3 years. And maybe in this game, we finally get it. But we have seen Troy Franklin start to overtake him, as you mentioned, within that offense in terms of the opportunities, both just, overall target share, end zone targets. So the matchup also gives me a lot of pause, but Courtland Sutton, I know he's had the production. I feel like he's been more productive than his talent warrants over the past couple of years. And I feel like now it's starting to catch up with him that there is someone else in the offense who can compete with him for targets. So I agree with you. Tough matchup. And I think a declining role makes Sutton a pretty dangerous play in Guillotine Leagues.
Yeah, you and I were on other sides of Courtland Sutton in the preseason. I was optimistic. You were pessimistic. His season's just been fair. I think overall right now you're in the win column, and I don't like this matchup for Sutton at all. Sports fans, you've got to have Xfinity. All the games, all in one place. You get a number of things. Number 1, Sports Zone. Every pro football game and over 1,000 college games, you get highlights and alerts all in one place. There's multi-view, view up to 4 stadiums at one time. There's Xfinity Fan View with live scores, live odds, and stats all in one place, personalized to you. You get enhanced 4K. Simply stunning visuals. You got a 4K TV. How about actually putting it to use with a 4K signal? That would be nice. And the voice remote. Just say whatever you want into the remote. Well, keep it clean. Just say like football right into the remote. Imagine all your football all in one place. It's easy with Xfinity. Learn more at xfinity.com. Restrictions apply. New residential customers only. Taxes and fees extra and subject to change. All right, let's go to our final stanza of Flex Around and Find Out players. Freedman, you are going with Buffalo tight end Dalton Kincaid against the Chiefs.
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier in the show, I would have gone with Travis Kelce. So just looking at the opposite
Same
side
game.
of this matchup,
Yes.
yeah, Kincaid has gotten by on extreme efficiency to this point in the season. Before his oblique injury, he had 12 yards per target, 3 touchdowns on 24 targets, but he had no more than 6 targets in a game. And then last week, in his return from injury, just 3 targets for 23 yards, no touchdown. And the real thing was a 48% route rate. That's a big drop from where he was previously, and that's the kind of week that can get you chopped. And it looked like the team was using him cautiously, and we have seen the Bills give Kincaid that kind of treatment in previous seasons. When he's been injured, he returns to action, but the team uses him in limited capacity because he's still injured, but he's gutting it out. And in those situations, he has tended to disappoint in fantasy. So I think that's where we are with Kincaid right now. And I'm willing to kind of put him on the bench for a week and let the team prove me wrong, right? Because Kincaid's got the talent. It's just a question of whether the usage is going to be there. But there's also the factor of the overall dynamic within this pass offense. And quarterback Josh Allen just does not focus on one guy. He spreads the ball around. So it means it's unlikely Kincaid is going to get more than 6 targets in this game. And that just automatically gives him an unstable floor. And then the matchup. The Chiefs are number 3 in fewest fantasy points allowed to tight ends. There's just a ton of risk with Kincaid. And if it's a situation where in your league, Oronde Gadsden or Kyle Pitts or someone like that happens to be available, I would maybe consider pivoting to them.
I got asked this question earlier today when I was doing my media rounds. Would you rather have the Chiefs in the AFC or all the other AFC teams for the Super Bowl? Brian, what do you think?
I think I would still take the field. I mean, Indiana Jones looking pretty unstoppable, Jonathan Taylor. And, the Ravens, I'm not counting them out yet. Of course, Lamar has been hurt the majority of the season. So is their defense. Don't think the Ravens are a cakewalk on defense anymore with Kyle Hamilton back and others. Yep. So I would take the field. And I pray the field.
Freedman, I mean, the field's probably the right answer here, right? Because you get, I get 15 teams. Anything goes wrong with Patrick Mahomes and the whole thing changes.
Yeah, it feels like sort of a golf tournament. Even the guy who's the favorite in a golf tournament, he's still not like even money or something like that. So yeah, the field I think is probably the sharp side here, and that I would say is reflected if you're looking in the betting market. You see that in the lines, but you still got the Bills, the Ravens, the Chargers, even the Broncos. If you think that Bo Nix develops a little bit more in his second season and they've got a great defense, and that doesn't even take into account the Colts, who I mean, who knows if this is something that actually lasts or if you trust Daniel Jones in the postseason. But yeah, there are enough good teams here in this conference to where I would still take the field, but man, I would be hating myself by the time we get to the AFC Championship game.
Right.
And it's Patrick Mahomes against anyone else, and I'm just like, well, I'm losing this bet.
Yeah, they might not get home field though. We'll see. That's they took some of those early losses when they were a much wobblier team than they are now for the Chiefs. All right, Brian.
Charch, you and other Vikings fans remember how well Daniel Jones can perform in the playoffs, though. Yeah, I had to take that shot.
What we'd like to think, what we'd like to believe as Viking fans is that we let Daniel Jones destroy the Vikings in the playoffs so the Giants would then make a $150 million commitment to a quarterback they would ultimately not use properly. See, we were playing 4D chess right there. They were playing checkers with that playoff loss. Brian, your final flex round and find out player is my number 15 ranked tight end of this week because of the matchup, and that is Hunter Henry against the Falcons.
Yeah, I'll get into the matchup in a second, but yeah, Hunter Henry, tight end 7 right now, red hot to start the season, but he's tailed off, and I think that's coincided with Stephon Diggs, ramping up, coming off major injury, and Kayshon Boutte.
Yeah, and who else?
Emerging.
Kayshon Boutte,
who I did pick last week on the show, proved to be wrong. Only 3 catches, but he scored on 1, so the process was somewhat right. But anyway. Hopefully the process is right here if I'm advising you to sit Henry against the Falcons, who this doesn't seem real that all season total tight ends have 12 catches, 105 yards, and a touchdown. That's it in 7 games.
Jeez, that's the season total.
That is the season total. Not one tight end has seen more than 4 targets. Not one tight end has caught more than 2 passes. And they've played Cade Otton, Hawkinson. I know who we hate now, but I know Zach Ertz. It's not a total wasteland there, so I don't know. I got to sit Henry in this one. Pretty easy for me.
Freedman, you've got him tight end 14. I got him tight end 15, so I think we're all in lockstep here.
Yeah.
Let's move on. My final flex around and find out player. Denver running back RJ Harvey against Houston. It's because, and I would not normally use him here, but he's coming off a 3-touchdown game. And I know several people that used him in Guillotine Leagues last week. Brian, Freedman, do we chase box scores on this show?
Hell no.
Absolutely not. He scored 3 times last week. That was a blowout win over the Cowboys. Now he goes up against, that's the worst. It's historically, by the way, Dallas on pace right now to give up the second most yards and second most points in the history of the NFL. That's how bad that defense is. Most of Harvey's success last week in garbage time, his other really good game, also blowout win when Harvey went crazy in garbage time. Houston's too good of a defense for there to be garbage time in this game. Over the last month of games, Harvey's averaging just 3 carries per game. That's not enough. Houston, good run defense. They shut down CMC last week. They're second in yards per carry, second in yards before contact, 9th in rush defense EPA. Harvey does chip in some receiving help, but Houston's awesome there too. They rank number 1 in running back receiving touchdowns allowed at 0, and they rank number 2 in running back receptions allowed at just 22 per game. I'm nervous about Dobbins, let alone backup RJ Harvey. Do not chase last week's box score. You've got him at running back 37, so I know you have not been flummoxed or fooled here whatsoever, Freedman.
Yeah, totally agree with everything you said. J.K. Dobbins, still the lead back there. And, maybe it's a situation where as the season progresses, we see a little bit more from RJ Harvey, but I think it's going to be a timeshare, for the rest of the campaign. And J.K. Dobbins would be the guy I would still want in that backfield.
All I'll add is,
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. If to add anything, I was all in on Dobbins in a DFS last week, so I'm still not very happy with that.
Still be a little bitter about that.
But he had a good game still. He did
have a good game to get in.
Should have had a 50 burger, and I probably would not. I'd be retired now. But anyway,
I had RJ Harvey at running back 32, and then I just talked myself into lowering him in part because I see you've got him at 37, Freedman. Thank you guys. This has been a ton of fun. I want to remind listeners and viewers, go get the Comet browser and get Fantasy Life Tier 2 premium content for free. FantasyLife.com/Comet. You get everything on Fantasy Life. Nothing is held back from you at that point. $100 value for free, and you get it for the full year. So if you do it today, day before Halloween, you will get it for until the day before Halloween next year. That gets you through next year's drafting season and the preseason season as well, in which case you'll be very happy that you got Fantasy Life Tier 2 premium content for free by going to FantasyLife.com/Comet. Limited time offer. Act now. It is expiring soon, next Monday. So go now. Fast. Vamonos. We are going out of here as well. Freedman, Brian, awesome job today. This has been a ton of fun. Do not recommend that you ever greet anybody at the door of Halloween tomorrow with a knife in your hand. That is a bad call. Learn from my mistakes. Don't do it. Thanks, guys. We'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye, everybody.